For a certain subset of Aespa fans, I was public enemy number one when I released the video What Happened to Aespa back last year before they came back with their My World release. On top of that, I was someone who was hypercritical of SM's argument during the whole Hybe versus SM beef that happened earlier last year. Some of that has aged incredibly poorly. And since I made both the Aespa video and the videos dissecting the Hybe versus SM drama, there's been a lot of evidence that has come out in the Hybe versus SM saga, which at this point has lasted over a year, really disproving some of the things I said in that video. And then also, my Aespa video looks very out of date because SM actually got their shit together and started promoting Aespa as their flagship girl group, as they should, and the group is really well off right now, one of the most popular girl groups in K-pop. So that video aged terribly, and I get comments about that literally every week. Like every week I still get comments in that video that say, this is outdated, this video aged like milk, and I read those comments and I'm like, well yeah, no fucking duh. This isn't even exclusively just an Aespa and SM thing. Whenever I talk about drama or events in general, my takes always age horribly. Like when I talked about 50/50, for example, that aged really poorly. It's just something that happens with my channel. I'm starting to think I'm cursed. Due to this, a notion has formed that I dislike Aespa, or that I hate SM altogether. And while I do hate SM as a company, I don't despise Aespa. In fact, quite the opposite. And to prove my point, I'm going to show you my entire Aespa album collection. As you can see in the background, we have this chrome version of Savage, which is probably one of the best like physical album covers of all time. This is amazing, and the art in it is absolutely gorgeous. Let's see here. I have this, I think this was like a Target exclusive of Girls. It's like this little tiny like faux jewel case version, I don't know. And then we have like the bigger version. It's like the same thing. And then I also have the SMCU 2022 like Winter Palace thing they did. This is just strictly Aespa, like the Aespa version. Some art in there. For My World, I got this version. It's like a poster version. I think I was in Chicago when I got this. And then I also have both like Ning Ning and Winter's like bigger copies. I'm pretty sure I ordered this one and then I found this one at like Target or something. And then for drama, I again have like one of these poster versions, which is like recyclable, printed with soy ink, whatever. And then I have this copy, which is like it has the poster on the outside of the album. I don't know, like sometimes SM, their packaging is shit, but whatever, we'll move on. I have this version of drama. This was like random as well. I didn't know which member I was gonna get and I got my bias, so that's cool. And then also this bigger version, which comes like in two separate pieces. Again, SM with album packaging is beyond garbage. I even have this like Kino keychain version of the Stamp on It Girls on Top Winter Edition, okay? I like Aespa, and I want to make that known now because I will be criticizing their music in this video and talking about SM, but there's this narrative I've seen online, particularly on Reddit and Twitter, that I don't like Aespa and that I don't like SM because I've been hypercritical about Aespa's music in the past and SM and their actions with Aespa in the past and how they've promoted them as a group. And obviously a lot of the information in that original Aespa video was outdated, but I think it's also very important to mention that I worked on that video for a month and a half before I even released it. So yeah, it was kind of just really bad timing, and unfortunately it got outdated real quickly. But I'm not really upset about that video anymore because that's something that happened a year ago, and I can't really rewrite history, nor can I see the future. So I understand why that video crashed and burned and became some sort of catalyst event on my channel, but I'm here to squash the narrative that I don't like Aespa because I very much do. Conceptually and discography-wise, Aespa are one of my favorite girl groups in K-pop, and right now they are easily top 3 in general in terms of brand recognition and general popularity. Like, they have never been more popular than they are right now, not even just in Korea, but also in Japan and China as well. I think SM have something really special on their hands, and I'm going to make a very bold statement. They may sound a little silly, but I think that the ceiling of Aespa as a group, all time, when it's all said and done, their careers are over 10, 15 years, however long it lasts, I think they have like top 3 girl group of all time potential. Like, their concept is there, their music is there, the types of genres that they hit, it's there. The performance ability is there, especially when they have these massive choreos with like Drama and Armageddon and stuff. All of that is there. Their concept allows for super unique and diverse storytelling. The hyperpop and electric rock soundscapes they play with really help them separate from other frontrunners in the scene right now. Next to NMIXX, Aespa are the most vocally talented girl group out right now. Both of the members who occasionally rap in the group, which is Giselle and Karina, could out-sing most groups' main vocalists. In fact, I wish SM would let Karina and Giselle sing more, and I mean really sing, instead of just giving them these little talk rapping sections on their songs, which is another criticism I have. But like, if they were able to actually sing more on their title tracks, you would see just how vocally talented this group is, because sometimes I feel like even with what we see on their title tracks, it is still not what they're capable of. Aespa's vocal makeup in K-pop is like the 2018 Golden State Warriors, just undefeatable, right? You got Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green was really good 6 years ago now. Damn, it's been 6 years? Damn. I'm just worried that SM doesn't realize the kind of hit they have on their hands right now, because they're already planning on debuting another girl group. Right, they're already rushing to the next big thing, when Aespa, like, they are the next big thing. They still are a very young group, have a bright future in the industry, and I'm just worried that SM doesn't see what we as fans see in the group. They've been a group now for almost 4 years, and they have finally received their first official full-length album. But why is that? Why did it take so long? It seems like SM planned something bolder for Aespa back in early 2023, but because of the SM vs. Hybe scandal, Aespa's comeback had to be delayed a few months. Rumors swirled that My World was supposed to be their first full-length album, and conceptually it would make sense. Aespa leaving Kwangya and returning to the real world has so much potential that I felt ultimately went underdeveloped with this mini album's release. I love Spicy. It's quickly become one of my favorite songs in K-pop. Similar to Hot by 17, it's infinitely replayable and has been a song that's found itself in my playlist and just never left. It is so obvious that My World, at the very least, was supposed to be a larger project. The summer sound found on My World fragmented on both that mini album and onto Drama. One criticism I have for SM and how they handle Aespa's music is that SM is addicted to sprinkling oil onto water. Why are songs like Hot Air Balloon and YOLO not on the My World album, but instead find themselves on a project whose title track sounds like this?
Bring all the drama, I bring drama, bring my girls in the back, drama, I bring drama, bring my world in the back. 나로 시작되는 drama. 날아가 내 맘은 hot air balloon, fire 눈을 가려 또이 널 향한 hot air balloon. 커다란 hot air balloon, fire 더 높이 날아 보일 더 뜨거운 hot air balloon.
I've seen many say it's because it was supposed to be on My World, but the B-sides got allegedly separated after the first full-length album fell through. And this fragmentation of sounds from project to project is honestly something that hurts the flow of their discography. We'll get to this more when I talk about Armageddon as a full-length album, because it's kind of the culmination of that issue. Before I go any farther, I will say I'm recording this over a span of multiple days, so expect scenery cuts and audio jumps in quality. I'm just trying out some new things. Please bear with me. I will try to equalize everything out as much as possible, but yeah, I'm just experimenting here. Something that SM didn't do on this album. Foreshadowing. I am no expert with Aespa's lore, so my criticisms fall both out of its realm and without its influence entirely. I genuinely don't understand a single thing happening in the Armageddon MV besides the one shot that looks like there's this like mermaid alien looking thing. That scene reminds me of how the movie The Arrival looked. I believe that's the title of the movie, where those aliens come down and that like pod and they kind of just sit there on Earth, and then people have to go like dissect the aliens' language. That is what that scene reminded me of, like very starkly. But that's the only thing I really got from the whole music video. Armageddon is a gorgeous music video, one of the most technically impressive that I have seen in a space full of gorgeous music videos. Now, there is one issue with the music video that I will get out of the way immediately, and that's the fact that they do use AI art in the music video. They even credit the artists who use the AI at the end of the music video, and it is very blatant. If you just watch the music video, there are some very obvious occasions where they use AI art, some of it looking not so bad, and some of it honestly looking really out of place and unnecessary. SM also used AI art in some of Rise's promotions as well, and SM is not the only company to use AI art. There are plenty of other companies that have used it for promotions, like I know Artemis used it for some of their promotions. 17 released a song called Maestro, and the music video uses a lot of AI art in it, and I think on the surface the reasoning for including AI art is somewhat noble. They're trying to go for the theme of, well, AI art is destructive and it's inaccurate, and while that can be true, by using AI art in the music video, you are still profiting off of using AI art. It's just a loop that they can't escape from, and I think they tried to do something and ended up not working out. And the K-pop community really, really criticized them for this. 17 was seriously dogpiled on when other groups have been doing it, and I have seen relatively no one talk about Aespa using AI art in their music video. Now, that is not me giving haters watching this video an opportunity to attack them. I don't want anyone to attack the AI artists who were in the Armageddon music video, who used AI art in the music video, or Aespa. That is absolutely not what I'm trying to say, but I'm wondering why people are not criticizing every group for using AI art and are picking and choosing. Performative activism. I think some people may have either ignored the AI art being used or maybe felt comfortable with it being used in the Aespa music video for Armageddon, because, you know, Aespa's whole concept almost kind of revolves around AI a little bit, right? Novice is literally the representation of AI in Aespa's lore, so maybe some fans kind of just thought of it as necessary to have AI art in Aespa's music video, when in reality, the AI art that is actually used is kind of the worst part of the entire music video, in my opinion. I think the styling, the set design, the practical effects, all of that is much better than the AI art used in the music video. Even the transitions that are not generated by AI look better than the AI art used. Like, a lot of that styling at the end that reminds me of like Savage era styling, all of that is practical. That is not AI generated, or at least not to my knowledge, AI generated. So a lot of the best parts of this music video have nothing to do with AI art, and I'm kind of questioning why SM even decided to throw it in. We will see an uptick in using AI art in K-pop music videos and in promotions, because for these companies it is much cheaper to hire an artist that makes these little tweaks to AI generated images or CGI or transitions or whatever, than paying an artist to work on an entire project, or a graphic designer to work on an entire project for a music video. I mean, I imagine it's cheaper. I'm not someone who knows the specifics when it comes down to the wages, but I imagine it is much cheaper. Unfortunately, this use of AI seems to taint what is a phenomenal music video. I would say one of Aespa's best to date. The setting is draped in a dusty gray and brown tint with flashes of drowned out blues and oranges. It really does feel like the members are skulking around an abandoned wasteland a few decades removed from human intervention. Like, it really does capture a Fallout setting quite well. There's that wrecked diner that winters in this kind of submerged parking deck area, and then at the very end they're dancing in just straight up the void from The Arrival. Like the spaceship where the aliens are in, they're just dancing in that. I think it serves as a fantastic juxtaposition to a music video like Spicy, for example. Spicy uses the theme of them attending school life, to create this false sense of space. There are some shots where we see a lot of people around them. They throw this after school party which some people attend. You know, they're walking through the hallways. But there's only about 3 or 4 shots in the entire music video where there are actual other human beings around them. So the actual music video itself doesn't have that much human interaction or just in general life around them than it may seem. It's just because of the theme of school, it makes you feel like the music video is more crowded than it actually is. Armageddon is aiming to do the exact opposite. It is aiming to create a music video which has these profound spaces with not a ton of life in them. We have backup dancers, and the only other people really are these people that are wearing these like very uncanny looking masks, and it gives off a very unsettling vibe. I would say the styling for this music video is a mix of their drama and savage eras. I mean, they open up the music video in these black leather jackets and that kind of silk-esque dress that Ning Ning wears, where she has that crystal over her eye. That kind of reminds me of the dresses that they wore at the very first shot opening drama. Also, they brought back the two-toned hairstyling on Giselle, and I believe they also give it to Karina too in the final dance sequence, and I'm really happy about that because I think that styling looks fantastic on Giselle. They gave it to her in like literally one shot in the girls' music video and never brought it back, and I was so upset. I was like, this looks so good on her. Why didn't they shoot with more shots with that hair on her? It looks great, and they brought it back. Shout out to the styling team for that. My favorite looks, however, come during that cascading waterfall shot, where it's this big open area they're dancing in, and they've got those very basic jackets on with the wet hair, the glistening makeup. It's very simplistic, and I love how the colors of their jackets work really well with the background. It's kind of the same shading. They're not the exact same color, but it kind of blends in really well, and also the wet hair looks is just an absolute serve. I will probably end up making the thumbnail of this video that one specific shot after Winter had like grown these like glass shard wings. Every single member has that kind of styling. It kind of calls back to Savage era styling a little bit. And you know, like Giselle has a crown, Ning Ning has that like kind of like shard flower glass thing on her eye, and then Karina has the stuff like kind of like on her upper face, like near her eyes and stuff. But Winter just gets a whole set of wings, and like the best shot in the entire music video is where she like literally violently sprouts these wings, and it's just like the light is beaming, it's shining in the background, which refracts the light off of like the glass wings. I don't think they're CGI. I think they're real. I think it's real. I could be wrong. I mean, CGI is getting so good nowadays, you can never really tell. But it looks sick either way. It looks really fucking cool. Probably the best shot will definitely be the thumbnail. It is beyond what I expect from traditional K-pop cinema. It is genuinely magnificent. I just wanted to make a segment kind of gawking about this music video a little bit because it is genuinely beautiful. But I do think it does serve as a detriment, coincidentally, to the song, because it is a music video that is so good that it actually overshadows what the song is doing. I've seen a lot of people say they only listen to the song when they watch the music video because it just heightens the experience. And typically, that is the aim of K-pop music videos, to heighten the experience of the original song, to show you the choreography, to show you the cool sets, the cool styling. But in this instance, I think Armageddon's music video actually ends up hurting the song because it is actually just so much better than the song itself. Before I dive into the full album, including Supernova's role in Armageddon feeling a bit underwhelming, I do want to cover the actual song itself because I do think this song is good. Is it a top 5 Aespa title track? No. It plays it way too safe in comparison to songs like Black Mamba, Next Level, and honestly even Spicy. The song finds itself over 3 minutes, but it feels like it's 3 minutes to be 3 minutes instead of actually doing anything creative or experimental with its runtime. K-pop songs are getting shorter. It's an every group problem, not just a specific group problem, and this is the same cookie cutter style of Aespa title track that you have heard before. A Karina-led opening followed by short vocal verses by the other members, leading into a very catchy hook and then chorus section, typically with a prolonged post-chorus. Armageddon switches it up by giving Winter this short verse after the first chorus, but then Giselle is given a forgettable 4-second talk rapping section that doesn't highlight any of her unique vocal traits. When Giselle fans say she doesn't get a lot of lines, they are correct. This is her longest line in the entire song, and it's barely even 4 seconds long. And she basically just plays ad-libs, and on a chorus, and pre-chorus section later very shortly. Giselle does not get the line she deserves, especially because she's a really good singer. This 4-second like talk singing section also just feels like a speed bump in the middle of the song. It feels like they wanted to get Giselle involved because she's technically a rapper, so they have to give her a verse that is slightly faster than a typical singing section, but not too fast because she's not really all that technically impressive of a rapper at all. So they have to give her this weird like hybrid mess of a verse, and it's so short, but it feels so weird. The second pre-chorus and chorus follow the same formula as the first, and then we're thrown into, I'll admit, a really great bridge from the vocal queen herself, Winter. I love this bridge, one of my favorites on their title tracks. And then we are once again catapulted into one of Aespa's, at this point, iconic like dance breakdown sections where they typically throw in a new lyric or ad-lib and then switch up the dance a little bit. This one's a little shorter than like what they do on Spicy, for example. And hey, would you look at that, a final chorus that adds a slightly different post-chorus that alters the feel and tone of the song a little bit. Just like Drama, look, I am not asking for a creative upheaval of their music, but can we at least start switching up the song structure a little bit? Remember, this is the same group that dropped Next Level, one of the wildest listening experiences in K-pop, and now we're just getting this formulaic slosh of title tracks. I like Drama, I like Armageddon, but they are formulaic, especially Armageddon after Drama. Like, we gotta do something else. With that being said, I like this song. I think it's at least a good song. I can replay it and have been while working out at the gym. It's a great gym song. I really like that dark, guttural, grimy chord that opens up the song, and then the off-tempo beats and the onomatopoeia in the build-up. The extended dun and run during the chorus, that's great. It's catchy in a way that isn't redundant, but it's also not doing anything, or even really trying to do anything. To me, it kind of reminds me of like a really good bench player in the NBA, like a 6th man of the year type candidate where they aren't trying to be a 25 point per game scorer, but they are good at what they do. Armageddon is this wasteland of a music video with some amazing editing and some of Aespa's best styling, and the song is just okay. Why is this song the song that everything in this comeback revolves around? This entire album revolves around this song. This is the beating heart of the comeback. Why is it so dull? They said this was a hip-hop influenced track, and you can kind of hear it with the slight trap elements in the chorus using some interesting synth chords, but it doesn't differentiate itself enough from Aespa's other tracks, like sonically, that I think, wow, this is hip-hop inspired. To me, this is just like, oh, this just sounds like an Aespa song. Doesn't necessarily sound overly hip-hop inspired to me. It's not pulling from like one specific era really, unless I'm just misinterpreting something. To me, this isn't much of a hip-hop track. Really, this is just an edgy track with vocal runs and good ad-libs and a catchy hook and chorus. And that's fine if you're into a K-pop song that has those elements. This is definitely for you. But for me, it left me a little disappointed. I wanted more after listening to this song. They need more on a title track. Again, this is their first full-length album. This is the title track that is supposed to headline this entire album, and it just doesn't. When this song dropped, I heard a lot of people say that this sounds like a B-side, and I could tell they were saying that in a way of, this isn't explosive enough, this isn't grandiose enough, the music video is really nice, but the song itself feels like a B-side on any other album. And when the audience is immediately saying stuff like that, and that wasn't just like a 1 or 2 person thing, I saw that take everywhere, that's when you know, hey, you may have floundered a little bit with this release. I'll echo here what I said in the comments of Jay Gatto's video covering Armageddon. I would recommend checking out that video. I think it's very good, and he covers a lot of the issues that I have with this song. A few of Aespa's title tracks, and I want to underline a few, because I don't think this about all of their title tracks, but just a few, including Armageddon, feel like I'm window shopping for a really expensive, high-end sports car, right? Like, you're walking past a window on a lot for a dealer, and you're like, wow, that car is really nice, it looks really good, and I know it handles great, but it's really expensive, and when it comes down to all the technical features, it can do all of those things. It's a fast, high-end sports car, but you know for a fact that thing is never going to get driven, and if it is, it's going to be by some millionaire who walks onto the lot. Chances of that happening are under 1%. That thing's never actually going to get driven. It just looks really nice, and that's a lot of Aespa's title tracks to me, right? Armageddon looks great. The music video looks great, but the song itself, the engine of the entire comeback, it's not going, it's not running, it's trying. Maybe coming off the lot, that window high-end sports car, it's sputtering a little bit, maybe something's wrong in there, but that's what it feels like to me. Like, this can go so fast. This song can go so fast, and it can handle so nice, and it looks so good, and it's just never getting driven properly. It's almost as if SM really loves the idea of what Aespa is as a concept, really loves what their music would sound like in some parallel world, but they can never really recreate that. Ultimately, they have made some great songs. I think Next Level is a amazing Aespa song. I think it's like the Aespa song to represent what Aespa is, but it's very rare. It's very few and far between. They can never replicate it accurately, and they can never fully flesh out that concept. Like on My World, they never really fully fleshed out the going to Kwangya from Real World concept. It was undercooked, in my opinion. They did some good stuff, but it was undercooked. And I'm not saying it's like JYP levels of like where they never gave ITZY anything tangible for any of their comebacks, and that's ultimately what led to ITZY not doing so well in the public eye. Again, I don't want to like doom post here like I've done in the past. They're a very successful group, and they will continue to be a successful group, but JYP with that group, they just didn't really market them all that well with their concepts, and kind of led some people on, and sometimes SM isn't like that with Aespa, but there's some missed opportunities with SM and what they do with their concepts. Armageddon should be Aespa's best title track. I'm very confident in saying that because this title track headlines their first full-length album. This realistically should be their biggest comeback to date. They should probably sell the most albums from this comeback. I don't know, My World sold a lot of copies and so did Drama, but realistically this should sell the most because it is their biggest comeback to date, and ultimately, it fell short of the hype of what Supernova set as a pre-release. And I might hear some say, well, Aespa has really cool lore, and if you consume all of the extra content, Armageddon actually makes a lot of sense, and their concepts are realized. You just need to watch the music videos. The average fan or viewer shouldn't have to watch lore videos to fully realize a concept for a comeback. All of that should be well packed into the music video. All of that sound should be packed into the song itself. And it's just not here. This isn't the first time that SM has undercooked a concept for Aespa either. I mean, we can obviously look at Girls, but also My World, I think, like I've been hinting at in this video, I think My World was not executed on nearly as well as it could have been, especially because of the concept going from Kwangya to the real world. There's a lot of themes that you can play with in that concept, and they just didn't. They just didn't. Like, Spicy's cool. I mean, again, the theme throughout Spicy is, you know, the girls attending school, and that's kind of it. Like, they throw a party, some stuff happens with the lore, and how effects start melting over in the real world, but that's basically it. Quick interjection from Editing Teju here. I really like the song I'm Unhappy. I think if My World had 2 or 3 more songs that were like I'm Unhappy, I would be more satisfied with the whole release. I do really like the song structure, but I think thematically it's barely scraping how social media can affect us. And I think some of the lyricism can serve as a pretty good analogy for how a average K-pop fan may view idols. I wish more of the album had more of a thematic intention behind it. And then, you know, we got some music videos for the other songs. I think Welcome to My World was an interesting take on an Aespa music video. I'm Unhappy, Salty and Sweet, Thursday, they all got some stuff with some, you know, some interesting editing and shoot locations. I like the Thirsty music video because it's a nod to Friends, but there wasn't a lot there. Like, there wasn't a lot there that went further, and I wanted to go further than just the shallow surface level themes of what they're going for. And Armageddon doesn't do that at all. It presents us with an idea, and it doesn't go much farther than wading waist level in the ocean. Like JYP's concepts, it's like ankle deep, and SM's going like waist deep here, but it's not much farther. And I want them to have an entire head underwater. Like, I want them to play around with developed ideas and just like stop giving us these underdeveloped concepts, because it's hurting the group in general when it comes to their entire concept. And I'm not entangled in Aespa's lore. I mentioned that earlier during my MV section, so maybe that makes my rant on their concepts mute. But I'm not even really talking about their lore. I'm not talking about Aespa going and slaying the Black Mamba. I'm talking about, like, very surface level themes in their music videos, like in Spicy. You know, the girls going from Kwangya to the real world, and they are students. Let's expand on that a little bit, because the farthest it goes in the music video is they're students, and they throw an after-school party, and some of, you know, the alternate Kwangya world starts kind of melting over in the real world a little bit. We get to see, like, the time stopping and stuff. Okay. That's not going very far at all. That is boring as hell, I'm sorry. It overall made My World as a Comeback feel slightly underdeveloped and a little disappointing, even though I do love the actual music presented on the record. And this happens tenfold in Armageddon. I believe a lot of Armageddon's disappointment has to do with Supernova as a pre-release.
I'm like some kind of supernova. Watch out, look at me go. Give me 좀 boy. 빛의 core, so high.
As of writing this, Supernova has reached 166 perfect all kills, which sits 14th all time, just behind G-Idol's Tomboy. This is a Song of the Year contender, lauded by many K-pop fans as being one of, if not Aespa's best release. This is great for the group. Truly, Supernova is a massive success, especially for a pre-release. So realistically, what's the issue I've been alluding to so far? Why would Supernova actually hurt Armageddon as a release? Let me clarify here, I don't believe Supernova affects Armageddon as a complete package. Like, Armageddon only benefits from Supernova catching onto the mainstream current and pulling in ridiculous numbers. No K-pop group ever is going to suffer from the objective success of a Supernova, for example. Like, SM is making a ton of money from this, and most of my complaints going forward are merely subjective and stuff that I have observed. But as a song, Supernova might just impact the reception that Armageddon is going to receive, and that's exactly what happened. Especially when Supernova ticks all of the boxes. This is quintessential Aespa at their best. Yes, it follows a same structural pattern that we laid out earlier with Armageddon, but the actual delivery is full of life and personality, something that is lacking in Armageddon. This song is one of the most addictive K-pop songs I have ever listened to. I was humming this in the gym for weeks after its release. With a cosmic hook and colorful synth line, Supernova is meant to have an edge of quirkiness with a mixture of otherworldly creepiness. Karina with her super strength and vampire fangs, Ningning becoming an arsonist and pestering Giselle, and then Winter just floating there menacingly.
He's just standing there, menacingly!
I wouldn't say this is new territory for them, but instead an evolution of what they did in Spicy. I feel like a lot of the same charm that is found in that song is also found here, just slightly altered to fit the theme of the comeback in general, being otherworldly, space, cosmic horror, that kind of stuff. The sets, styling, music video are all top tier and playing to that early 2000s Hot Wheel chromatic aesthetic. It's both goofy but also slightly serious in a way that I think only Aespa can pull off, and if I'm being honest, it's the most Aespa sounding song since Next Level. This all spells disaster for Armageddon because now the audience is thinking to themselves, well, what's Armageddon gonna sound like? Is it gonna be as good as this song? The teasers keyed in on a darker look, which is ultimately what we got, but Armageddon ended up popping out of the oven 10 minutes too early. I don't even dislike the sonical and visual change from Supernova to Armageddon. I think some may see that pre-release and say, well, why isn't the main release like that too? But I actually kind of like the dichotomy between the two songs. However, what I do dislike is how boring Armageddon is compared to Supernova as a song. Pre-releases are meant to build excitement, hype for a comeback. They're not supposed to be the focal point of a comeback, and I think some would argue that Supernova wasn't the focal point of this comeback. However, what happens when the final boss of a video game ends up being incredibly underwhelming? You face some really great bosses throughout the entire game, and then you get to the final challenge, and it's super weak. I mean, that happens with most mainline series Pokemon games not named Pokemon Platinum. Armageddon was upstaged by its leading act, and I think this led to mixed reception from K-pop fans. If Supernova never came out, I genuinely think there would be a difference in audience reception for Armageddon as a song. Would it be much different? Maybe not, maybe so. Who knows? Again, it's a hypothetical, but I do believe it had at least a little bit of influence there. I do think points that we have already covered and are going to cover in the next section had more influence on Armageddon being poorly received by a lot of fans. However, I do think the hype that Supernova built definitely did not help Armageddon's case when it fully dropped. It ended up leaving a lot of viewers and listeners confused as to why that song itself, Armageddon, was actually worse than the pre-release. And of course, my thoughts there are purely subjective. If you like Armageddon more than Supernova, that's not a bad thing. I'm just echoing the sentiment that I have seen from a lot, and I mean a lot, of K-pop fans. I just have to remind people every single video I create that when I talk about musical opinions, it's a fucking opinion. So please delete the paragraph that you just wrote. So when I originally wrote the script for this video, I went on to rant about why I consider Supernova a pre-release, and I do very much consider it a pre-release in function. Technically, Supernova is its own single that's playing a 1A to Armageddon's 1B. And, look, we can have a cute little discussion about the technicality of what Supernova is, but it's obviously functioning as a pre-release. It is a song that came out and was promoted purely to build hype for Armageddon as an album, and that release. I understand that pre-releases in K-pop commonly aren't promoted like Supernova has been, but that doesn't necessarily mean that in function Supernova is not a pre-release. I just find it slightly comical that there are people trying to argue technicalities in my comment section when K-pop terminology over the years has been anything but technical. I don't want to sound aggressive saying this because I know my tone has came off that way in the past, but some of those comments, which I won't show just to, not risk them getting attacked, came off as the OP deliberately playing dumb to what a pre-release is. SM dropped this song on streaming platforms and promoted it a week before the album came out purely to boost its numbers on charts. That is why. There is a universe where this music video drops, but the song itself is not dropped on streaming platforms and it's not promoted, and it is still very much a pre-release in the same vein of how the promotions for Supernova ended up being a pre-release for Armageddon. I'm sorry for derailing on a side tangent. I was just a bit irritated that some people were being blatantly facetious about a topic. In this video and going forward, I call it a pre-release because that's what it's doing, and if you have a problem with that, go fucking argue with a wall. I don't care. In that video, I talked about Supernova. I have Supernova as the thumbnail. However, when I made that video, Armageddon had yet to release fully, so I wasn't really able to talk about this next point. But the reason why I really dislike pre-releases at times is when they are fantastic, like in Supernova's case, it can lead to the full album or full mini album's release and its reception being hampered. If anything, I think
These pre-releases give companies an excuse to slack on the full release of a project, to put less effort into creating a very high quality title track, and instead just pump out a pre-release. Quantity over quality. That has become the norm in K-pop recently, and it has become so annoying as a genuine music fan to watch companies favor releasing more and trying less.
Editing Teju once again interjecting here. Under that pre-release video, I had a lot of viewers comment things such as, well, the Western pop scene does this too. They release pre-releases all the time, as some sort of like touche to my argument I present in the video. And that video of me talking about K-pop having an addiction with pre-releases is not me saying K-pop is the only music industry that does it. If anything, I think the Western industry does it even more, but that doesn't exclude K-pop from also doing it. K-pop very much overindulges in releasing singles early. I could be over speculating here, but some of those comments had a vibe of anger that I had called out the K-pop industry for something the Western pop industry also does. There's a tinge of K-pop fan elitism to some of those comments under that post, and to be honest with you, I'm not surprised in the slightest.
A huge reason why I have honestly been so bored with K-pop recently is because some of these companies will drop the most mediocre pre-releases, and then you say, well, okay, maybe the title track will be better. It builds enough hype to have you come back for the full release, and then the full release comes, and it's no better than the pre-release. Sometimes it sucks. It's not very good, and you're left wanting more, like desiring more from the project, and that happens a lot in K-pop. It's been happening a shit ton over the last year or so, and it has led to me being very dissatisfied as a genuine music fan of the industry as a whole. I want to clarify, I don't find Supernova or Armageddon to be bad songs. Supernova just so happens to be a Song of the Year candidate for me personally. However, I do think that the move to drop Supernova with this really nice music video before Armageddon was more of a tactical cash grab rather than genuine lore building or world building for the full release. Supernova to me feels like a cheap tactic by SM to build hype for a song that did not deserve that much hype. I have very few complaints towards Supernova as a song, which is why it is a Song of the Year contender for me. But I think it's a Song of the Year contender for me because it's a great Aespa song, but it's also just there by default because I think there has genuinely not been that much good K-pop that has actually come out this year. That might be a hot take, but Supernova is just up there in the Song of the Year category with like NMIX's Dash and Midas Touch by Kiss of Life and basically all of ARM's album for a reason. I mean, it's a great song, but it is also up there by default for me. I do wish the song went a little further in some areas, but I do love the production. I think the music video is great. I think the styling is amazing for them. It's just a really great release that came out before Armageddon. In the end, Supernova will be the one remembered. It has 160 plus perfect all kills at this point, which is crazy. Sure, Armageddon currently has fleeting success. It's still in our minds because it's a recent release, but I don't think that doing TikTok dance challenges and it staying mainstream that way is actually equating to quality of a release. Supernova is still being played by everyone everywhere right now. Yeah, it has some TikTok dance challenges too, but it's topping charts, something that Armageddon isn't doing, mainly because of Supernova, but still. Supernova ended up doing its job a little too well, and the comeback ended up peaking before it even really began. This leads me into the next topic that we will cover, being the actual album, the full package, the final project. So now it's time to talk about the elephant in the room when it comes to this comeback and why I believe it has received mixed receptions, and that's the actual album itself. We've gotten past the music video, we've talked about the song itself, we talked about Supernova, now we have to talk about Armageddon as an actual project. This comeback really hurts me because I had so much hype for this album. Like, this is their first full-length album, and while Aespa have missed on projects in the past, which we will briefly talk about, this was their chance to really redeem themselves after the mess that was Drama as a mini album. And I was ready. I was like so ready for this comeback. And then I listened to it the entire way through and I was just like, this is it? Like, I deliberately didn't watch a lot of those, pre-released lore videos they did, and I didn't really listen to the highlight medley either. I wanted to stay relatively in the dark about this album, and when I listened to it, I just remember feeling so underwhelmed. Like, really? There is bias with almost every take when we talk about music. It is a subjective talking point, so I understand that my hype impacted the way that I received this album, and it may not for you. Maybe you didn't have any hype for this album, so going into it, you're less disappointed because you didn't have my level of excitement, and I am willing to admit that. Like, a lot of my personal bias goes into this take, but a lot of the reasons I have around why I dislike this album are echoed elsewhere online. Like, I do not think that my take here is incredibly biased to a degree where it's blinding reasonable deduction. I think a lot of my criticisms with this album are very valid. To look at why this album suffered structurally, we also have to look at their other projects. I still think today Aespa's best project is their first mini album, their Savage mini album that has songs like Yeppy Yeppy, I'll Make You Cry, Iconic, Lucid Dream. Some of their best B-sides ever still reside on that first mini album, headlined by Savage, a song, mind you, which I have come around to recently and liked a lot more, especially after Armageddon, because as much as I dislike Savage from a mixing perspective and the song itself, I will admit, conceptually, it's very Aespa, and it's a great headlining song for that Savage album. And it's because SM stayed within Kwangya. They didn't reach out to the real world and try to mix the two concepts together. They stayed within one realm, and it works. I think the lack of Lee Soo-man's creative direction for Aespa's albums has really hurt the cohesiveness of the projects. This is really felt on Drama, and I also think a little bit on Girls as well. I really dislike Girls as an album. It is one of my least favorite projects that I have listened to over the last couple of years in K-pop, and there's a reason behind it. It is not an album. That is a bunch of lore-based songs that are somewhat tied together, thrown onto a project, and called an album because it felt like SM needed to release something. Girls is a title track, very underwhelming. Not a bad song by any means, but it's very underwhelming. It kind of leans more to like the electric rock sound, and I think they make it sound good, but it's probably one of the more forgettable title tracks from them. And then before the album even came out, we heard Illusion. Okay, that was more of a traditional pre-release. It didn't really get promoted. That was more of an actual pre-release, as you would consider a pre-release. And then they also dropped Life's Too Short, the English version, to help promote in the American markets. And that was also basically a pre-release. It was promoted a little more, so I don't know if you would consider it a pre-release. I know K-pop fans, I guess, are now sticklers on what a pre-release is, but that kind of did the same thing that like a Supernova did for Armageddon, and I think that tactically that was a really bad move for SM. I find it hilarious to watch these bigger K-pop companies like JYP and SM create music that they think the American public is going to love to hear. Like, non-Aespa fans, non-ITZY fans, right? What do you think those people want to hear from these K-pop groups? And I'm telling you right now, it's not Life's Too Short. It's not Boys Like You. I'm not going to speak for everyone because I'm obviously not everyone, but I think there's a general consensus that creating songs that sound like they're Disney rejects is not going to get you anywhere in the American market. And it didn't for Aespa. There's a reason that Aespa have not really pushed promotion in the American market since that Girls' comeback, right? They focused on other areas because they're very successful in Japan and they have a massive Chinese following as well. They don't even really need to move into the American market at this time. But that attempt to create, Life's Too Short and say, this is what our Western audience is going to want to hear. No, we want to hear Aespa. We want to hear Savage. We want to hear Black Mamba. We don't give a fuck about that concept. Like, we don't listen to that. And I think that led to the album itself lacking cohesion. Like, there are two versions of Life's Too Short on the album. So we had heard almost every song on that album before it even came out. I believe the only new songs on release of the album that we had never heard was like Lingo, ICU, and like Girls. I may be forgetting one, but I think those were the songs that we hadn't heard yet. Like, we'd heard Illusion, because it was a pre-release, and we'd heard Life's Too Short, and then the rest of the songs of the album were like singles like Black Mamba that we've already heard. So it was a complete disaster of an album, in my opinion. It didn't do anything for a group. If anything, it was such a huge downgrade from their debut mini album that it was like, what is this? And then there's My World, which I think is a huge rebound for them as a group. My only real complaints with that album is that it's not longer, but I actually think it does do a pretty good job of melting some of that Kwangya sound, like on Salty and Sweet, onto a project that kind of hits the real world aspect, like with Spicy and I'm Unhappy, a little more. So I think SM actually did a really good job in that album of kind of blending the two together, but it's not long enough. It's a mini album. It needs at least 2 to 3 more songs, and it would have been amazing, probably their best project, in my opinion. But unfortunately, because of the SM Hype drama that we talked a little bit about earlier, that album kind of got fragmented. Then SM created Drama, and I love that title track. When I made that comeback ranking video, I believe I had Drama as the #1 spot because I love that title track. I think the cinematography for the MV is awesome. I think the song itself is very good, but the album itself is really a mess, a complete mess. You have Drama, you have Trick or Trick, which sounds very Kwangya Aespa, and then you get songs like Hot Air Balloon, YOLO. Those are not Kwangya songs. Those are My World songs through and through. It suffers with an identity problem hard on that mini album, and it really hurts the cohesiveness of that project. And it was like a mess all over again, like with Girls. Like we went from Savage to Girls, and it was like, what's happening here? And then we go back to My World. It's like, okay, this is a little better. And then we go back to Drama, and it's like, what's going on here? All of this culminates on Armageddon as a full-length project. There is a very defining point halfway through the album where we go from a Kwangya-sounding Aespa album to a real-world-sounding Aespa album, and it does not work. It simply does not work. They are not meshed together at all well. It's structured very poorly. Its runtime ends on honestly going too long for the quality of song at the tail end of the album. Honestly, the last 5 songs become boring to listen to compared to, Supernova leading off the entire album. And then you get Armageddon, and then you get Set the Tone leading into Mine, which sounds very Kwangya. And then we get Licorice, which I think is SM's attempt at saying, okay, well, here's the real world, here's the Kwangya, we're going to time together a little bit, because Licorice does sound very My World-esque. And I really like the music video. I love like the little Power Ranger nods. I thought it was really cute, but it's honestly a very forgettable song to me, especially compared to a lot of their other B-sides, and that's kind of the issue with this whole project. A lot of forgettable B-sides thrown especially onto the latter half of this album, and even some of the standout B-sides, like Mine, are kind of half-baked compared to anything else on their debut project, and I think that a lot of the songs on this album should be elsewhere throughout their discography. Like Mine should be on Savage, Licorice should be on My World, Bahama should honestly be a B-side to their one summer comeback they did, which I'm like blanking on the name for some reason. Better Things, like that should be a B-side to Better Things. Why? That's a perfect B-side for that little summer single they did, and it's not. It's for some reason in the middle of Armageddon, and that's the problem. Armageddon doesn't have an identity. This album has zero uniqueness to it. It is everything that Aespa has struggled with over the past couple of years of making an album on one album. And it's just really disappointing. I think the best course of action SM should do going forward with Aespa is choose one side of the fence. Choose Kwangya, choose Real World, and focus on that for just an entire project. Do not try to throw a song like Bahama on a project like Savage, because that's what they've been trying to do, and it just does not work. Try to go Real World for an entire comeback, because when Aespa did that, when they played one side of the fence for their first album, it worked. It is regarded by many to still be their best project, because that's what they did. And their second best project, My World, kind of does that too. Like, it's more on the Real World side. It has Kwangya elements, but it's not trying to play both sides very adamantly, right? If you're going to try to play both sides, blend them together properly and take time to do that. Don't throw Hot Air Balloon on Drama and call it a day and be like, well, here's both of their concepts colliding. No, it's not. That is jarring for an album enjoyer such as myself. I haven't really gotten a chance to talk about RM's new project, Right Place, Wrong Person. I personally think it's my album of the year. I think it's an amazing project. It kind of shoots off in all these different directions with its creativity. It is a very uncohesive album on purpose. Like, that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be all these individual thoughts and ideas that he has kind of splattered on one project, all having very high-end production quality, and it really works. I think it is an amazing, amazing project from him. And I think Armageddon is trying to do a similar thing where you have Licorice, you have Bahama, you have Mine, you have a ballad on the back half of the album, which I'm forgetting the name because it's that forgettable. You have Armageddon, like you have Supernova is doing all these different little things that we've heard before here and there on their projects, but it's not executing any of them at a distinctly high level compared to what they have done in the past. With RM's album, a song like Around the World, a song like Lost, or a song like Nuts is executed at a very high level from a production standpoint. And that's what makes that album kind of connect. Even where it may look disjointed, it connects that way. Armageddon does not. It doesn't connect at all. It feels like I'm trying to fit square pegs into triangle holes. Like, it's not working. And I think SM honestly didn't care whether it worked or not. Armageddon to me is not a conceptual win. It is SM sitting down in a boardroom saying we need to give them a full-length album because people have been demanding this of us for a while. They've been a group for nearly 4 years. We need to give them something. And so they threw together a bunch of B-sides that they had in the tank that they may have not used before and just kind of smashed them into one project, gave it a really pretty headlining pre-released single with Supernova, and then Armageddon, which is a really flashy music video, and called it a day. It is style over substance. Literally, Armageddon is style over substance, and it does not work. I want substance. I want to see the full potential of this group, and this is not their full potential. This is honestly a waste of an album for them. I think there are redeeming things about this album. Like, individually, the song quality is good. I think Bahama is a great summer song. It might be one of the best summer songs to come out so far this year, and it's only a B-side. I think Supernova is good on its own as a single. I know I've been calling it a pre-release. It's technically a single. It works. Either way, it works, right? I think Armageddon, as much as I complained about it in my individual song section, I think it's a good song. Like, I listen to it actively. I think Mine's good. I think Set the Tone is fine. But when you mix them together and structure it the way they did, it absolutely does not work. It absolutely does not work. And I know there's going to be fans online who laud this as like album of the year. This is the best album, etc. And I can't change their mind on that. That's their opinion. And I know they're going to be biased because they're probably fans of Aespa. But we have to take a step back in situations like this and say, do companies actually understand what the fuck they're doing when they're making this music? Because it doesn't sound like they're actually sitting down and thinking about the concept of this group or how to execute with this group. SM has all the finances in the world to go back to the Savage days and create an album that is that cohesive and that high quality, that consistently good, but they just haven't. For whatever reason, they just haven't. And you can argue, TikTokification of music and all that stuff and what's been going on in just pop music in general, not just K-pop, recently, and I would take you up on that argument. I think a lot of people want to watch this video and say, well, Tej, you demand too much out of Aespa. You demand too much out of SM. And that's because I respect the group and their talents. I have a high level of respect for the group. And when I respect something, I demand quality out of it because I know it can give me quality. Okay, I know Aespa can give me an album that's really good because I've heard it before. I was there when Savage dropped. I may not have loved the title track, but I loved the album. I replayed the shit out of that album for a long time, and I still do today. I know they can make stuff like that. So when they don't, when they drop Drama and Girls and Armageddon as albums, I sit there and say, this isn't striving for greatness. This isn't trying to improve. This is striving for sustainability within the market. This is just for money. This is for, gaining slight fame within the public eye. This isn't actually trying to make good music. And I don't think that's exclusively an Aespa or an SM thing. I think that's just K-pop in general. I don't think K-pop and a lot of what the industry does is moving in a direction to improve the music. It is following trends and it is making money with frequent comebacks. That is it. And that's honestly why I've become really dissatisfied with listening to it over the last, honestly, year and a half or so. It's just been so boring.
I imagine there's at least a few people watching this video saying, Teju, why rant about Armageddon for an hour, right? Like, this video is really long. It really doesn't need to be as long as it is, but it is. Why sit here and spend so much time talking about something that in 5 to 6 months probably isn't going to mean anything? The honest answer, without going too far into my personal life, is that music as a whole helped me through some really dark periods throughout my high school and early college life. I dealt with a lot of mental health issues, and it's something that kind of kept me grounded and rooted to myself as a person for a very long time. So I have a lot of passion when talking about music because it is something that means more than you can imagine to me, which is why I will go on these rants for an hour about something that may seem so minuscule to some people because it just means more. When I made that Aespa video last year, I think it was about 40 to 50 minutes was the runtime, I saw some people on Twitter say, why make a 40-minute video about Aespa? You know, like, who puts this time and effort into making a video like that? And I saw some people say that in kind of a demeaning way. There were some people who were impressed by that, but there was a lot of people who were almost making fun of me that I made a 40-minute video talking about Aespa and SM's treatment towards Aespa at the time. And to me, that was very off-putting and a little demoralizing, right? I spend a lot of time making my videos, and I try to make the best products possible. Sometimes that shows, sometimes it doesn't. And when I spend all that time and effort into a video and a comment says something like, just get to the point already, or this video is too long, it does hurt a little bit. And I don't want that to come off as me trying to bait for sympathy. It's just really a reason as to why these videos can be really long, like the Eyes One video and the old Aespa video and this video now. I just really like talking about music, specifically K-pop, because it's something I have a large passion for, and so these videos can kind of run on. So I apologize if this video was a little too long for some people. I have very strong opinions about Armageddon as a comeback because Aespa is a group where sky's the limit. They have so much talent. Their discography is great. I go back and listen to Black Mamba and Next Level and the entire Savage EP because their music has aged very well because of a niche that they have created within the scene, right? Some of these other groups where they're following trends with, drum and bass sounds and some of these other trendy sounds in K-pop right now, none of that music is going to age that well because all they're doing is following trends instead of making quality music. And I know I've nitpicked things here and there with My World and Girls and Armageddon, but SM in the past has made very high quality music with Aespa. Like, I think their debut was very good. Next Level is very good. I love Drama and a lot of their B-sides. Aespa really has a great discography for such a brief career so far, right? I mean, like, they're almost 4 years old as a group, but still, like, in that time, they have essentially 4 mini albums, now a full-length album. They have a lot of music for that time, even with SM not promoting them the best, which is something I talked about in that video last year. As much as I want to sit here and hope that SM is going to change Aespa's album formula going forward, I don't think they will, because Aespa bring in a lot of money for the company. They are, I would say, SM's biggest group right now, and they're very popular. I would say top 3 in terms of popularity in the girl group scene right now. So there's no reason for SM to change the album formula, even if, like, it gets mixed reception by fans. If it's still bringing in money, doesn't really matter what we think. Doesn't really matter what Taeju thinks on YouTube. Because if it's bringing in money, it's bringing in money, right? And this album is going to bring in a shit ton of money, and they're probably going to continue with this whole reality plus Kwangya thing, and we're going to get good albums, you know what I mean? Like, we're going to get a My World, we're going to get a Savage from time to time, where it's like, oh, yes, this is the Aespa that could happen. And then we're going to get a Girls, and it's going to be like, oh, I forgot SM has no idea how to make albums. Excluding Red Velvet, because Red Velvet's albums are typically pretty good. I think maybe the reason Drama and Armageddon felt so disjointed was because of the fallout of the Hype versus SM drama. Now that we're past Armageddon, I'm hoping their next release sounds a little bit more cohesive, because it's painfully obvious to me that some of these B-sides on Armageddon and on Drama were supposed to be on a full-length album for My World, and it just didn't end up happening. We actually heard some of those songs kind of teased and kind of thrown around online before My World even came out. So, I'm really hoping like maybe that whole situation is what caused some of this incohesiveness, and going forward, I'm wrong. I'm interested to hear your guys' opinions about this entire project down below. What do you think about Armageddon? Do you think the complete opposite to me? Do you think it's their best album, it's amazing, etc.? We're all allowed to have musical opinions, so please share yours respectfully down below. Unfortunately, Armageddon is a great example as to why I don't hype up album releases anymore in K-pop, because this is what tends to happen. I hype up this album release and then it comes out and it ends up being the most mediocre thing I've ever listened to. There are some groups and some artists that disprove that actively, but unfortunately, when it comes to one of my favorite groups, Aespa, they dropped a record that is beyond forgettable.